SCORE Northeast Wisconsin and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences. From starting to sustaining growth, learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you miss anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
A good Saturday morning to everybody out there listening. My name is Terry Pinch. I'm one of the co-hosts this week, and joining me as co-host is regular returnee Pat Lowney. Pat, how are you doing this week?
Hi, Terry. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And this week, our guest is Carrie from Carrie Limitless, and we're excited to have her on the show. She brings kind of a unique business that's about a year and a half old now, and we think you'll learn a lot from it. So, Carrie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Very nice to be here, Terry and Pat.
Okay, thank you. So let's start first with you telling our listeners about your background and what led to you setting this company up.
Sure. Well, I can say one thing. If you asked me 2 years ago if I would be starting my own business, I would laugh at you and say, no, that's not happening. So what ended up leading to that was I was working in economic development at UW-Oshkosh for almost 8 years. And as many people are probably aware, higher education is going through some different transformations right now. And UW-Oshkosh, like many others, was consolidating their workforce. And so they had come in and decided that they needed to cut out 20% of the workforce and went through to decide what departments, blah, 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 all that other kind of stuff. And shockingly, I got the notice that my department was being eliminated. So I did not expect it. I was shocked. I was sad. I was hurt. It was definitely a punch in the stomach, something that I, did not see coming. However, I do want to say that the reorganization, I believe, is very important, and UW-Oshkosh is taking steps that they need to take. So, but anyway, so I didn't really, everything that I was so wrapped up in UW-Oshkosh, and I really believed in everything that I was doing. But I just didn't even know what I was going to do from there. Luckily, I had a conversation with a good friend, Vicki Updike, 2 days after the notice of that. And she said some of the best advice I've ever gotten. She had said, Carrie, take a beat. Don't just start looking for something. Really take a month or two to think about, what do you want the next chapter in your career to look like? Be very intentional about this. And I'm so glad that she gave me that advice. And so I did. I started thinking about, okay, how can I figure this out? What is going to be the best way that I can figure out what my next steps are? So I was fortunate enough to be in contact with some pretty amazing UW-Oshkosh alumni in my position at UW-Oshkosh. I had gotten to work with Jim Vandehay, who had started Politico and then started Axios and is out on the East Coast doing some pretty crazy, amazing things. And so I reached back out to him to ask him, how do you start your mornings? How do you figure out your things? What made you so successful? And he shared his morning routine with me that involved meditation, journaling, some different things like that. And so I just, like I said, took Vicki's advice, really started being intentional about this, carved out an hour every single morning to just meditate, journal, read. And then I just started setting up meetings with anyone in my network that I admired or thought was interesting, or anyone that I cared about. And I tried to have 2 meetings every single day just to kind of put it out there, just to ask what they were seeing in the market, what they were seeing in the economy, what they were seeing in workforce, what kind of opportunities that they might know of for me. and just had a ton of really, really great conversations. The next big pivotal point was I ended up meeting with Dan Shea, who's also a mentor of mine. And that was the conversation that changed everything. We actually talked, I think, for almost 3 hours that day. But he was the one that said to me, have you ever thought about going out on your own? Like, I just don't understand why you're not facilitating and having conversations with people and that sort of thing and doing this out on your own. And that really blindsided me because I had never, ever, ever considered such a thing. I was very comfortable with the fact of working at educational institution and finishing my career there. And this just seemed like such a foreign concept to me. But I sat with it and I reflected on it and I journaled on it and meditated on it. And the more that I sat with it, the more it felt very right. And that this was the direction that I needed and wanted to go. And so that was kind of the jumping off point. That's how I ended up starting my business.
Yeah. So as you're going through that thought process, what strengths did you see in yourself that you thought could help you make this successful?
Well, it's so funny. Like when I think back to my professional career, and it is a combination of business development, marketing and PR, leadership development, and project management. And all 4 of those areas have served me immensely on this new journey, right? Business development. If you're going to have a successful business, you have to know how to be able to find and connect with potential customers, right? Marketing and PR. You have to know how to promote yourself and get yourself out there. Just the project management, there's so many things to manage, right? When you're actually a business owner and you're not just looking at one area, you're not just looking at marketing and PR, you're not just looking at this or that, you're having to shift and focus from what does my accounting look like? What does my business development plan look like? What does my marketing PR look like? What does the foundation of my business look like? You know, the content, the actual stuff that I am providing to people that's valuable. And so putting all those pieces together, it's, like I said, it's just kind of funny when I look back, it's like, wow, all of that stuff really lined up perfectly. And one of the things that was true for every one of those positions is they were externally facing, which meant that it was very important for me to build my professional networks. And so I've been doing that very intentionally for over 20 years, my whole entire career. And it's something I love to do. I love to connect with new people. And so that really put me in a great position just with the network that I had built over the last 20 years.
Okay. So let me ask you a question about that on the networking. Why did you start doing that in the first place?
So actually my very first mentor, my very first professional big girl job was at the Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau. And Wendy Hillsberg was my boss. And I thank her so much because she was the one that like drilled that into me. That was just like, Carrie, networking is a superpower. Networking is the most important thing. It's so important for you to find things that you believe in and network through those different avenues. And so she said, I would like you to join Propel, which was Oshkosh's Young Professionals group, and I would like you to choose another group to join. And I joined Women in Management as well. And boy, both organizations amazing, but especially a huge shout out to Oshkosh's Propel Young Professionals group. The friends, the connections, the people that I have grown to, I mean, it's just they're still all there, or most of them are anyway. And it's just amazing to look back at where we all used to be in our 20s and now where we all are. But it's just wonderful knowing that I'm actually like working with some of them and still see some of them on a very regular basis. So I can't say enough about that group.
The reason I ask that is that it's one of the conversations I have a lot when I'm working with mentees with SCORE about getting out and networking and getting to know people and be involved in things like that. And it's also one of the things I find that I meets the most resistance, I think, sometimes, because people say, I'm too busy. I'm trying to run my business and things. And I'm a huge believer in it. And I just was curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add to that, I think that, and I get that completely right. Like networking is a very scary word to a lot of people. And I think that when people hear networking, they envision some kind of after hours event where there isn't much structure and there's a whole room of people and everybody seems to be talking to one another, but you don't really know anyone yet. And so you don't know how to have conversations. And my thought process on this is, unless that situation like excites you and that sounds good to you, don't network that way. You don't have to network that way, and you shouldn't network that way. And that's actually not the way that I network at all. For instance, I look for groups that I genuinely have a passion for, that I believe in, and that I enjoy that work. And then not only do I become involved in those groups, but I try to participate some way on some kind of committee, right? So I'm giving back, I'm building stronger relationships because I'm interacting with a smaller group of people on a regular basis. And then I'm also going to those other events, that where the greater membership is there as well. And then I always have those safe people in the beginning to feel comfortable walking into those bigger events. And then it just, you're picking off and making just a couple more connections every time there's some kind of event or something that particular membership is doing. And I just want to say, networking can come in all sorts of different forms, just from asking individuals to have coffee. That's networking, right? And that's a very, very more intense, intimate networking opportunity, or joining some kind of small group, or I really encourage people to think of networking outside of the box. Don't just think of, that typical scenario that comes to mind.
All right. We're at the point where we're going to take our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
We're glad you joined us this morning. Our guest this morning is Carrie Rule with Carrie Rule Limitless. And before we continue our conversation with Carrie, I'd like to talk a little bit about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin. SCORE Northeast Wisconsin serves an 18-county area in Northeast Wisconsin, plus the county of Menominee in Michigan. We have over 50 volunteers, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, HR, retail, best practices, and many others. In order to register for a no-cost, confidential mentoring session and/or to learn more about SCORE Northeast Wisconsin, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and/or growing your business, and you can complete an online application for our mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, the SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin. To support small business people, SCORE Northeast Wisconsin is always looking for new mentors. If you have expertise that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help and your expertise to make a real difference in their success. Go to score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, Click on the volunteer button and fill out the short application. We'll get back to you and explain more. And thanks again for joining us on Biz Talk. And now we're going to go back to Carrie. And Carrie, the question I've got is, we've talked about your background. Tell us what it is that Carrie Rule Limitless does.
Sure. Okay. Great question. Thanks, Pat. So Carrie Rule Limitless is all about emotional intelligence, developing emotional intelligence in yourself. And when I say emotional intelligence, what I'm talking about is 4 key components. And those are your level of self-awareness, your level of ability to self-regulate yourself, your level of ability to motivate yourself, and then finally the 4th is that empathy piece. And that's empathy for yourself as well as others. And there's just loads and loads of data around how emotionally intelligent a person is and how successful they can become. And I just, through experience and all of the reading and the research and the conversations, I have just come to believe that it is really the key to a successful and fulfilling life, not just professionally, but personally as well. And so what I'm doing is helping individuals and teams develop their emotional intelligence. And I do that through a few different modalities. And one of them is through workshops. So I'll go in and work with teams and businesses to help them develop their emotional intelligence. Another way that I help individuals is through individual coaching. And then another way is through speaking at events. And the speaking at events is a little bit more just to help people understand what emotional intelligence is and where the value of it comes from. And then there's the retreats for individuals who really want to do a very deep dive and take 7 months to focus on their emotional intelligence. And then lastly, I've just started something called Emotional Intelligence Alchemy Circles. What I found is there's a lot of individuals that want to do this work, realize that it's important, but having a personal coach is maybe not financially viable for them. Their employer may not support something like this and may not be bringing this kind of training or skill development into the workplace. So these circles, which are comprised of 8 people and where we meet virtually once a month with assignments and things weekly, is more affordable for individuals that want to dip their toe into developing their emotional intelligence.
So when do people realize that they need help or need to work on their emotional intelligence? I know there's some people I think it comes naturally for, but are there others that, reach some kind of a personal crisis where perhaps they didn't get the job that they were working for or something? Tell me about that.
Sure. So first of all, I want to share a statistic with you. When asked, 95% of individuals believe that they're self-aware. Do you want to guess what the actual percentage of self-aware people is? 10
Probably
to
about
15.
10 to 15. Sorry. I would have said 5, so yeah.
Yes. So 10 to 15%. So that is definitely one of the things, right? So there's a large amount of people that think they're self-aware and they're not. So there's some of those individuals that are just not going to get it or be ready for that. But I think you hit it on the head when you talked about, like, is there some kind of pivot? Is there some kind of something that happens where someone recognizes that they're looking for something more? And I think that's very, very true. It usually happens in a space where someone might lose a job. It might be the end of a marriage. It might be the kids are now all graduated and now there's an empty nest and husband and wife, it's just the two of them again. It also can be something like depression. Someone finding that all of a sudden, or not, maybe not all of a sudden, but they all of a sudden realize that they haven't been happy for a long time, that they haven't been feeling fulfilled for a long time, that like, is this it? I mean, is this really it? Did I work and do all these things? And so that's usually some of the different situations where I end up coming into contact with people that like get and understand and benefit from this work.
How many times do people actually become aware of this, that they need that kind of help? You know, the idea that you're talking about of getting a personal coach or reaching out on your own. It seems like I grew up in a world where if the company provided it, I might take advantage of it or I might not. But I wasn't going to pay for it out of my own pocket because I didn't have the money, or I thought I didn't have the money. Versus I think it's more common now. It seems to be more open anyway to the idea that maybe I have to invest more in my own career and my own future. Is that correct?
From my perspective, I would agree with you. I think that you're right on there with that. I think before that was the thought process, but people are, and I don't know why necessarily, but I think a lot more people are recognizing that, as Mel Robbins says, nobody's coming to save you. Like your success in your life is completely up to you. It is no one else's responsibility. It is only yours. You are the only person that can change it. You're the only person that can create it and design the life that you want. No one else can do that for you. And so, are you going to invest in that? Do you get that if you want to have something better, you need to invest in that? You don't wait for an employer to pay for something. You don't. And yeah, like I said, I agree with you. I think people are becoming more and more open and recognizing that more and more. And I don't think that used to always be the case. And so that is just, but that's very exciting to me because I have worked with so many groups, like when I am brought into a business and the person didn't necessarily ask for it, but the company asked for it. So those are all kind of new dynamics, but it just is, it's disheartening sometimes to see the loads that people carry, the baggage that they are, is weighing them down, the just unawareness of themselves and their true situations. And so it's just very rewarding when people start having aha moments and start seeing more reality and start recognizing that they have a whole lot more control over their lives than they originally thought.
All right, we're going to take our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to Carrie Rule from Carrie Rule Limitless. Before we get back to Carrie, I have a quick education update for you. If you go to our website at score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, you'll see a tab at the top called Workshops and Events. And in there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of webinars and events that you can take to help you with your small business, and most of them are free. There's two I want to mention just based on feedback that I've had with certain mentees, over the last month or so. But they are a live event that's coming up on June 19th, and it's called Marketing Basics. And it's looking at both digital and traditional marketing. And for many people starting their small business, they can't afford to hire somebody. They have to do it all themselves, and most of them know nothing about marketing. So this is actually a really good course to go and learn just the basics of where you need to go. It's 11 o'clock Central Time on June 19th. It's free, and it's called Marketing Basics. The other one I want to mention is that I had a number of people I've been working with on search engine optimization. Questions have come up on that. And websites are still important, but even your Facebook pages get referred to in web searches. And so a lot of times how you get found is related to keywords you're using in your website and the way you've set it up. So just to let you know, again, if you go in the workshops and events tab on the score.org/Northeast Wisconsin webpage, there's a recorded webinars sub-tab. You go into there, and if you just search for search engine optimization, you'll find that there's 4 courses coming up in June from different chapters, all about how to start using a search engine optimization. And if you don't want to wait for the live course, there's 20, 30, 40 within the webinars that you can go and listen to too, because those are the things that will really help you get started. You can't learn everything at once, but what you can do is start to get familiar with different aspects of running a small business, and over time build that capability so that once you do get big enough to not do that stuff anymore, you'll at least know what the people are doing for you. You can understand and help them really understand what you need. So again, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, workshops and events tab. And now we're going to turn back to Carrie. And Carrie, I want to talk now in a little more detail about the events and activities that you offer. And you talk a little bit on the website about it, but could you talk a little bit first about the workshops? How do they work and why are they important for the people attending?
Sure, absolutely. So when I'm doing workshops, I'm offering them in a couple different ways. I feel like if an organization just brings me in for 1/2 day or 1 day on a particular subject, that's nice if they're doing other things. However, if you really want to focus in on a skill and developing an area of yourself, it needs to take place over time. And so I prefer to do workshops that are divvied up. So depending on the client, 60 to 90 minute workshops at a time with space in between them so that there's homework and there's opportunities for those people that are involved in that cohort to practice some of the things that we've talked about, to try out some of the tools that I've introduced to them. And then we come back and we can debrief as a group and talk about those experiences and how that's worked, and then take the next step and pick up a few more tools, have some more conversations, and then be able to take that out into the real world. Try it out again, come back, see how that worked. The best way that we learn is by actually practicing and doing and figuring out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And so that's, I think, one of the things that makes my workshops a little bit different is I prefer to have them split up over a course of, and like I said, it depends on the company. It depends on what they're looking for. If it's just a straight emotional intelligence, general focusing on that. Sometimes I've been brought in to do emotional intelligence, but with a focus on communication and navigating conflict. Or there's a company too that I work with where we're doing emotional intelligence, but with also a focus on just time management, personal and professional time management. So, and then also too with as Pat touched on before with the networking, I'm just very, very passionate about networking being like one of the most valuable things you can do. That just is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. And so I do an emotional intelligence along with how to build and cultivate your networks.
So at this point, is it companies coming to you to do this, or do you do some of your own workshops and have people sign up for it?
So at this point in time, it's companies coming to me to do this. I'm thinking about and looking at offering some things like that, but at this point in time, I'm trying to stick to the 4 core areas where as any business owner knows, it can be very exciting. There's all sorts of different things you can do, but you got to learn to dial it back a bit and focus on a few things and get that foundation set before you go off in too many directions.
And how did you find your first clients for these workshops?
Networking. Yes. I mean, actually, all of my clients so far have been through networking.
Weren't you a little nervous? You're starting your own business and you have to find clients. Were you worried about, is somebody going to say yes and let me come in and teach their people?
So actually, I think sometimes I'm an optimist to a fault. I thought I would so I did things a little bit differently. When I launched my business, I don't want to say a party, but I held an event that I invited anyone that I knew to come. And I did a little keynote speech on what I was offering, the services I was offering, their appetizers, music, some wine, beer, that kind of thing. But I really thought that I would just have like this stack of like papers filled out of people wanting to work with me. That didn't happen.
But it did take the networking again to build to that point.
Yes, exactly. But then I was reaching out and reconnecting with people and having more conversations. And I mean, trust me, I have been working my network hard, meeting with lots of people and, just having those conversations, leaning on that network, circling back with the people that I know, first of all, right? So, yeah. I'm hoping to one day have a situation where people just flood in the door.
Have you heard people say to you after you've had a chance to talk to them a little bit about what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish? I've actually been looking for somebody to do this. I've been thinking about this for a while, and really haven't been able to find somebody that's, working on the emotional part of a person.
I haven't had someone say that they were looking for that yet. Well, wait, there is one example, but first of all, I want to say there's quite a few people that have never even heard of emotional intelligence. And I was pretty shocked by that when I first started having these conversations. And then there's a group of people that have heard of emotional intelligence, but they don't really even know what it means, right? So I would say that right now, one of the major areas that I'm working on is just getting the word out about what is emotional intelligence and why is it important. Because even though it's been around for decades, it's still pretty unknown. Now, however, through networking, I do have a client, an executive client that I'm coaching on emotional intelligence from outside of the state. And so this is, in that particular case, that person was specifically looking for someone to work with this individual on emotional intelligence. But usually it's through some other kind of avenue, or that's what they're looking for, and that's emotional intelligence, and they don't realize that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I want to jump to the retreats now. That's one of the things that really interested me when I first read about you and what you were doing. Can you talk a little bit about the Limitless retreat? What is it? When does it happen? And describe what happens at the event.
Sure. Yeah. So it's actually part of a 7-month program, and the group is limited to about 8 to 10 people, can be men or women. Can be for personal or professional reasons, but ultimately this is an individual that is looking to dig deep to improve their emotional intelligence so that they can have a more fulfilling and successful life. And so what we do is it starts out with individual conversations with myself. So if someone is interested in participating in this, we will have a conversation to see if this sounds like it will be a good fit for that person. And if it does seem like it will be a good fit and they want to be a part of this, what ends up happening is there is a 6-week runway up to the actual retreat. And this is where that cohort group exercises that are given to individuals each week for those 6 weeks going up to the retreat. And then We come to the retreat. The next one is coming up in November 6th through the 9th. And we all meet at Miraval Wellness Resort Spa in Tucson, Arizona. Just paradise in my mind, just the most beautiful, peaceful, calm, serene spot I've ever been in. And we meet each other all in person for the first time. And over that weekend, we do a number of different exercises. Some of them are group work with equine expert Lucinda Betty. She's the head of the equine program at Miraval in Tucson, Arizona. And this work is very much centered on self-awareness and self-regulation. We do some spots where there's individual coaching. There's time carved out for reflection. There's also time carved out for just relaxing and taking care of oneself, whether that be a massage, some kind of treatment like that where people can just relax, or they have a lot of different activities for instance, if you want to learn about how to keep bees. So there's just a lot of different, it depends on kind of what you're looking for in the areas that you're looking to grow in. And so that weekend is crafted so that it suits your personal specific journey, but then also we're coming together, going apart, coming together, and people are having that combination of individual and group experiences. And then at the end of the retreat, we come together and talk about what next steps are going to be for each person individually. And then those individuals are supported over the next 5 months through, once again, the virtual cohort meetings, some virtual training or coaching one-on-one, as well as exercises and homework over those next 5 months.
So as you're going through this over the last almost year and a half now, what are the key issues and opportunities you're seeing with people? Is there some consistent pattern, or is it completely different every time?
Can you elaborate on that question a little bit? I'm not sure that
As you talk with your clients, are you finding that there's pretty consistent issues and opportunities that you have to deal with, or is it different individually for everybody?
So both. It's usually some kind of major transition, but those transitions look different, right? So maybe it's someone who has been in their career for the last, or in their industry for 20 years, and they just are not feeling that anymore. And do they want to start a new business, or do they just want to go into a different industry? So that's a common theme. There are also individuals, though, that they're doing what they want to do. They're passionate about what they want to do, but they want to take it to the next level. Like they want to hit this ball right out of the ballpark. And so I've seen people use this as an opportunity to do that, to just get recentered, to rejuvenate themselves when they're getting ready to take that project or that business to the next level. So that's another common theme. And then the other one I would say is mostly just that transition in personal lives and just not feeling fulfilled, just feeling is this all there is? I feel like there should be more to this. I feel like I could be happier. I feel like I could feel more fulfilled. So I would say that's the third area where people are usually coming to me for conversations, is they don't even know what they like anymore, which is very interesting to me. But I found for myself as well. I mean, we're so life moves so fast and you have to do this and you have to do that. And society says you have to do this and society says you have to do that. And your family says you have to do this and your friends say you have to do that. And your kids and whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're 50 years old and you've just been like focusing on all that stuff. And it's just like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I like. I don't even like, life does not feel exciting to me. And that's not how it should be. And that's not how it has to be. And so that's another, I would say that's the third bucket. Did I answer that question correctly?
You did.
Okay.
And we've now reached the point where we're going to take our final break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back. I would like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Hailing and Associates. Hailing and Associates help small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan ahead, thereby minimizing taxes for this year and beyond. Hailing and Associates, personal connection, positive results. Thank you to Johnson Financial Group. Wherever you are in your life or the life of your business, Johnson Financial Group works with you to understand your goals, enabling them to match the right banking and wealth services to help you complete your mission. Thanks to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. The paper contains relevant and useful information about the business community in this region. And finally, we would like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation in support of Biz Talk and Score Northeast Wisconsin. So now we'll turn back to Carrie. And Carrie, could you let our listeners know how they can contact you and find out more about Carrie Rural Limitless?
Sure. Thank you. So the first way is my website is C as in Carrie, R as in rural, limitless.com. So you can always check out my website. Please follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram. That's Carrie, Carrie, Rule, R-U-L-E, on LinkedIn and Instagram. And then I'm always open to emails. So that's Carrie, Carrie, at C as in Carrie, R as in Rule, limitless.com.
Excellent. Okay, so as you look back over this whirlwind of 12 to 15 months since you started up, what have you learned, and is there anything you would have done differently?
So I would say the number one thing that I have learned is I have way more power and control over the destiny of my life than I ever thought or realized. That would be the big one for sure. That I have a lot to learn. I have by no means figured this thing out. I work just as hard on myself daily as I work with other people on these things. I think that it is one of the epiphanies that I had too was that it's not about where I end up, but it's this journey, right? Like it's every single day. It's this wonderful conversation with you all. That's like fantastic. Thank you for this opportunity. It's the opportunity to work and help other people. One of the things though that there's not much I would change because I do believe that even things that don't turn out how you want them to turn out are working for some kind of reason, right? Like I just don't know what that is yet. However, in the beginning of this journey, I went from someone that was kept my cards pretty close to the chest to someone that just started kind of being super open and vulnerable, and probably too vulnerable and open for some individuals. And now I think I've come to, I've like, that's leveled out, right? Like I was way up here and then I went down here and now I've balanced that out. So, and that's kind of what everything is, right? Is just balancing everything out, balancing your life, balancing your work, balancing your family. So yes.
Okay. Well, Carrie, thank you for being a guest in the show. You have a great story, a really good story, and a really good business where you offer services that I think a lot of people could really benefit from. So we really appreciate having you here today. It was really good. And of course, we covered about a third of the agenda that we wanted to. So it shows you how much good discussion there was. We really appreciate having you here. For our listeners, thanks again for joining in with Biz Talk with SCORE. You can find more at our website, score.org/Northeast Wisconsin, and you'll find shows from the last 6 years. And you can also go online to the various podcatchers and find us. Thanks again to WHBY, and we'll talk to everybody next week.